What's up, everyone? Uncle Jay is back with the quarantined edition of the poker vlog. What are you doing to stay sane? I'm pretty extroverted and this is weird. But look what I did today. If you call that making up a bed, pull this a little bit over more and bed is made more. What are you doing to get your time right? I'm gonna do some of this. This thing's pretty cool. Yeah, that's nice. Go over some. Yeah, right? Homie's a beast. Google it. I'll probably organize this a little bit. Go Jags, go Jags. Yeah, this could use some work. It only takes a minute. What are we gonna do today? Do some of these. This thing's pretty cool. Music books. Just gotta walk a little bit at least, right? What are you doing during said quarantine? Are you even quarantined? If you're not, get you quarantine. Please, please, for the sake of everyone around you. It's not about you, it's about who you could endanger. But today we want to discuss what we're doing during quarantine. We have to figure out how to make ourselves better, even if we're locked in our house. We're going to get caught up on our Netflix. We're going to get caught up on our cleaning, I hope. And then at some point, you're going to run out of stuff to do. So, what are you doing to stay sane? Please let me know because I need ideas. I busted out the keyboard and I've been playing a little bit, and that's been fun. How about learning a new language? Haven't really started that, but that's on the agenda because if this goes on for, let's just hope it doesn't go on for that long, but during this quarantine, don't forget to stay active. And I know that may deem difficult seeing as how we are quarantined. But obviously, you can do push ups, you can do crunches, you can do lunges. I like to do the wall sits, those are pretty, if you ask me. Maybe you're interested in yoga. Yoga is something that we could try during this quarantine. That could be fun. I mean, there's just tutorials everywhere. There's the power of the internet. We can just learn all of this stuff. So I think that we could all use this time to grow and to be our best selves. So I think that it is important for all of us to collaborate and to help each other during this time of whatever's going to happen. What about books? Do I have any avid book readers that are watching? Let me know what books to read. Anything that captures your mind. I'm not looking for fiction, more like self growth. Uh, not really anything outside of that. Anything to expand the mind. Anything to learn. So, since we can't play poker in the casino, we're obviously going to be playing online poker, at least a little bit. Definitely not for the same stakes, but we do what we can. So, I want to go over a tournament that I played recently, and I'll let you guys rip me accordingly. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So the first hand we pick up is King Queen offsuit, and there's an early position raise, and then a re-raise, so that's going to be an easy fold here. If the guy didn't re-raise all in, this Gunner 70 guy didn't go all in, we definitely just make the call and see what develops here on the flop, but he gives us the easy option after his 3-bet that we'll just go ahead and lay down the King Queen. This next hand we're going to look at, I pick up ace-7 offsuit in the hijack position. I was getting a little antsy and I made a min raise, and that's no reason to be betting. I'm not sure if I should be raising here or folding. Folding might be a little bit too nitty, but ace-7 is pretty borderline. Just understand it's not a very good hand that you need to proceed cautiously if faced with any kind of aggression. So we do make the raise here, and we get called by both the small blind and big blind. It checks around to us after flopping the ace. We do need to continue betting here. And just a small bet is perfectly fine. There's no reason to size up. They're only going to continue with an ace, a queen, or a good draw. So this was a good hand to get rewarded on, but I'm not sure about this ace 7. This next hand, we pick up ace 6 of diamonds. We are under the gun +1. This is a standard spot to make a min raise, and we get called by the person on the button. The flop comes 8-8-5, and this is a good board to continuation betting. I say this because we have the backdoor diamond draw. It's really hard for your opponent to connect on 8-8-5. Any 7 that comes, we're going to continue barreling. Any ace, we can continue betting as well. If we get a 6, we'll probably check. So I think that this is just a good board to keep betting, and there it is. And it's good to be picking up these small pots throughout the tournament. This is how you keep a padded stack and are able to apply aggression throughout the tournament. This next hand we're going to discuss, we have ace queen suited in the big blind, and this Popsy person makes it 3 times the big blind, which is way too much. You should just be min raising at this stage of the tournament. And the small blind makes the call. I think that this is a good spot to at least be 3 betting, but given our stack sizes, we should probably just shove all in. The villain in the small blind has about 31-ish big blinds, and given that there are already, 7 big blinds, 7.5 big blinds already in the pot, shoving all in is probably the best move here. Let me know what you think about this play, or if you think I should be raising to, what would it be, about 15,000 or so, but I think that shoving all in is a correct play here. At this stage of the tournament, there's only about 30 players left, and I have a really decent stack size, so I want to be getting a lot more aggressive against the smaller stacks to put a lot of pressure on them. So when it folds around to me in the small blind, I think that min raising with the intention of folding to a shove is a good option here, and that's exactly what we do. I think that this is not a spot to always be min raising, but you do want to make sure you stay aggressive. In the very next orbit, I experienced the exact same scenario where it folds all the way around to me in the small blind. And this time I decide to limp instead of raise. I'm not sure what to really do here, but I don't think that we should continuously be raising with junky hands like 8-6 offsuit. So if he were to raise, obviously I would fold, but we just decided to limp and he calls. And when we flop middle pair, there's no sense in checking here. I think that we should be putting money into the pot to put the aggression on. And if he were to go all in, I think we just have to call off. There's a lot of draws out there. Only a jack really beats us. Obviously, a lot of better 8s. However, I think that given his stack size, it's just too tight to be folding to a shove of not that much more. So the next hand that we're going to look at is this Jack 10 offsuit in the hijack position. It folds around to me and I go ahead and make the min raise. I'm not sure if I should be raising or folding here. I think that it's pretty close. But like I said earlier, I do like to keep an aggressive image nonetheless. So I decided to make the raise, and the small blind and both big blind call, which is perfectly fine. The flop comes queen, queen 7 with 2 clubs. And I think that this is a relatively difficult board for anyone to connect with. And although I have complete air, I think that putting out a continuation bet is okay. I do later find out that this cards fan here, a couple seats to my left, is pretty maniacal, so he was pretty much never folding in any scenario. And if I had known that, I would have just checked the flop. But we do make the bet and get called, and at this point we're just going to completely give up. There's no reason to continue firing away when you have complete air, especially when when your opponent calls the flop, he has a lot of queens, a lot of sevens, pocket eights, pocket nines, good club draws, any club draw really. So my Jack 10 is not good up against that range. So I'm not sure if I should be raising this initially when it folds around to me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm not really sure about this hand. This next hand we're going to look at, we pick up Ace King offsuit in the hijack position. There are two limpers before us, and given that we have about a 17 or 18 big blind stack or so, shoving all in is probably the best move. But I decided to raise instead, seeing as how I feel like these limpers ranges were really weak, and if I were to go all in, they would most likely fold. But I feel like I had a much stronger range in them, so I am okay with seeing a flop. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think about this, or if I should just be going all in here. But I do decide to make the raise, and we flop the effective nuts, pretty much the nuts. And we're just never folding here. So I decided to bet about half pot, maybe a little less than half pot, just to see if I can entice anyone to call. But I think that if we want to stay balanced in higher stakes tournaments, then shoving all in is the correct play with pretty much all of your range. This next hand we're going to look at, we pick up Ace Jack offsuit in the low jack position. This is the very next hand from our previous hand, so we want to keep our aggressive image. So we make the minimum raise, and we get the guy to our left that calls, and the big blind calls as well. So we're going multi-way, and the flop comes 5-4 deuce. I don't think there's any merit in a continuation betting here, seeing as how it's easy for the big blind to connect with this board. There's a lot of middle cards, there's a lot of small cards out here. Just give up when you see this type of board texture. There's no reason to just fire away and donk off your stack and bluff off your stack. Just keep it pushing. You can't win them all. This next hand we're going to look at, we pick up the almighty pocket ladies in the cutoff, and we're facing a 3x raise by our opponent, which is way too much. You can easily punish him by our 3-bet here. It forces your opponents to play well. I'm only going to continue with a really good hand if you're making huge raises at this stage of the tournament. So we do make a 3-bet. It's about 60% of the pot. You don't want to be over 3-betting because it entices people to call when you bet smaller. Like this Cards fan guy. This guy's in another hand. As we can see, he's just super loose. And when you cold call a 3-bet, you figure his range should be pretty solid. But I decided to check the queens on the flop. Queen 6-3 is hard for anyone to connect with. So I think that we should be checking in a lot of the scenarios to entice our opponents to bet. But he didn't fall for that. But we still end up winning a nice pot here. This next hand, we pick up pocket 10s in the small blind position. And our opponent here, Cards fan, limps in because he likes to play as many hands as possible. We do have a raise in order here with pocket 10s. This is obviously a good starting hand. We want to size up just a little bit. Usually I'd raise about 9,000 if I were in position. But since we are in the worst position, which is the small blind, you do want to size up a little bit more. So we make it 11,500, and Cards fan decides to continue. When the flop comes Jack 4 deuce, I don't think checking is a good option at all. We should be continuing on this board. It is very hard for our opponent to connect with. He can only really continue with any jacks, any pair jacks or pocket 9s or lower. I don't know how many ace 4s or ace deuces he has in his range. Probably all of them because he does play a lot of hands. But nonetheless, we do put in the bet here of just 12,000, and he decides to fold. There's no reason to be betting a lot because the smaller bet gets the same job done as the bigger bet. So low risk, keep risk low, survival. This next hand we're going to discuss, we pick up ace queen offsuit on the button. We're nearing the final table of this tournament. It folds around to me and I make my standard min raise. The person in the small blind has a pretty small stack, and if he were to go all in, I would insta call, snap call, because ace queen is too good to fold. So we put in our raise and he calls. The flop comes jack 10-9 with two clubs. And notice that we do have the queen of clubs in our hand. So our opponent decides to shove all in, $25,000 into a $15,000 pot. This kind of puts me in a shrug call mode. I don't think that we're ever folding here. If a club were to come on the turn, then obviously we have the redraw with the club, as we figure the queen of clubs is a decent club to have. And if a king comes, then we have the nut straight. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this hand, but it was a pretty snap call for me. I don't know if it's the right or wrong move, but that's what we did. So we've made it to the final table, which is always fun, and we start off on the button. We pick up queen 9 offsuit, and we make our standard minimum raise and get called by the small blind. We only have about 22 big blinds at this part of the tournament, so we need to proceed cautiously. When the flop comes king 6-5 with two hearts, I think that we can put out a continuation bet. I think it's a little bit too tight to just check and give up in this scenario. I think we need to bet something. But if faced with any aggression or any kind of kickback, we need to slam on the brakes and not proceed anymore. And that's exactly what happens. Our opponent makes the call, and the turn being a king doesn't change anything. So if he called the flop, he'll probably call the turn, and we're just going to give this hand up. This next hand we pick up pocket eights, and we have about 14 big blinds. We are pretty small stacked at this final table, so this is definitely going to be a shove spot. I was really excited to see the person to my right limp in so that there's even more dead money in the pot when I shove all in. So that's exactly what we do, and there goes Cards Fan snap calling my all in. Or snap shoving all in, rather, for just a little bit more. Or just a little bit less, excuse me. Shoved all in for a little bit less. And the gentleman to my right folded. Or I call him a gentleman, but he could be a complete degen. Who knows? But Cards Fan shows up with ace-3 offsuit, which is just an awful call. You have to figure that your ace-3 is behind pretty much anything I'm ever shoving. I'm never shoving ace deuce suited. I guess I'm shoving king queen suited there, but king queen offsuit, maybe not. I'm not really sure. I think that's close. So this ace-3 offsuit is a really bad call in this scenario. And I was way ahead on the flop, but that's poker, baby, and you can't win them all. Alright, and for this final hand, I'm going to show you how to not play pocket aces. This is a bust-out hand. We do not win this tournament, but we made a decent run. We decide to min-raise here with an 8 big blind stack. Should probably just be going all in. However, I like to generally keep opponents in with their entire range. So I like to bet the minimum so that I can have a huge range advantage going into the flop. So that's exactly what we do, and the big blind does make the call. The flop comes king h6 with 2 clubs, and the big blind leads for a half pot. And I don't have much behind. I should just be shoving all in right behind here, but I knew in the back of my mind that I was never folding, and if I can get my opponent to continue to barrel, then that's positive. But even if I shove all in, he's probably never folding given the stack sizes. So we just decided to make the call, and we get absolutely punished for it. Go ahead and rip me in the comments below. Let me know what you think about this hand, how you would have played this hand. But that's going to be it for this tournament. We're going to do more of these given this whole quarantine situation. So it gives us something to do while we're stuck at home. So thanks for checking into the vlog. We'll see you soon.